How's it going, guys? Who remembers this PC? Cyberpower PC, Core i5-3570K on a motherboard that doesn't overclock. Cyberpower PC here. Sold it for 300 bucks or something like that. And I got it in trade for another computer that I had sold at a $50 profit. So we were doing pretty good. It has a GTX 660 non-TI in it. Pretty terrible video card, actually. And I actually was able to remedy this for the gentleman. So before I open the case, just want to thank Gamdias, the sponsor of today's video. Gamdias threw some money at the channel so I could do weird and interesting projects like make my own chiller. So thanks to them, they have their Talos E1 case, which is a beautiful MATX case. It's got lots of airflow, 2 tempered glass panels, and you can pair it with their Aeolus fans, get all the same lights talking to each other, and then they even have RGB power supplies in their Kratos power supply. Links are in the description. Thanks to Gamdias. Just a little quickie there. So I sold this to the customer and he was saying, I want a GPU, find me a GPU. So my whole reason for doing this video is this little guy. This is a ITX version of the Sapphire Pulse RX 570 4GB edition. And that doesn't sound like an awful lot of power, but I can almost assure, because of the comments, I read the comments, that on my, more budget-oriented videos, a lot of times I bring up a certain level of computer that I assume a lot of you have, and you guys will actually go like, no, I'm still running a Core 2 quad, or I'm still running GTX 750 Ti or something like that. And there are a lot of you out there probably already know this, but I believe that this guy's actually the new 750 Ti. And quite a bit more powerful, as we will see. 750 Ti a few years ago could get away with some 1080p gaming in most AAA titles. Not anymore. Not anymore. And what's replaced it on the NVIDIA side? Nothing really. I mean, like 950, not as powerful as this. 1650s, not as powerful as this. Very much more expensive. These go for like 90 bucks on eBay used. This is a refurbished model I got for $120 Canadian over on newegg.ca. And as of right now, there's at least one that's still there for $100 or something. What is it? I put it on the screen. $104.99 over on newegg.com in the US. So yeah, there's a little bit of shipping and some taxes you got to pay, but for around 100 bucks, you know, if you hunt, you could definitely find an RX 570 4GB edition that you can put in a computer like this, and it only requires one 6-pin connector if you find the right one. And this computer here had a dead power supply at the time, and I put in a Thermaltake, fairly, crappy power supply, like I think it's a 450 watt or a 500 watt, and it only has a 6-pin connector. So this is a perfect swap in, swap out, and the 660 is probably going to take the exact same amount of power. Let's see what kind of FPS difference we can get by upgrading the GPU and help this guy out to actually be able to play AAA titles. This is going to be pretty good for the guy. 3570K, so 3.8 gigahertz, I think, the 3.7 gigahertz max on a quad core. It's got 16 gigs of RAM in it. It's not really the greatest RAM, it's like 1333, but adding this GPU, I believe, will add absolutely a whole level of brand new life into this PC. Follow me. We'll play some games with the current hardware, and then we'll see what kind of difference an RX 570 makes. Alright, I'm just going by White Sonya's computer, waiting for Apex Legends to update, and I saw he's got Sawana's Sacrifice, a pretty cool, graphically intense game from a year or two ago. Alright, we're on 1080p, high settings, Sawana's Sacrifice, getting 20 frames a second in this opening scene as she's paddling her boat. I'm not going to play much of this game, but this opening scene is all actual rendered gameplay, and we can see it's at a very uncinematic 20 frames a second as we come up on this little cutie who may or may not be the scariest woman ever. But yeah, 20 frames a second, that's not good. This is like actual gameplay footage of her going and talking, and there's voices and stuff while she paddles a log down a river at the beginning. I've played a little bit of this game before, so I kind of know what's going on with it. But yeah, 20 frames a second. That's not going to make for very good gameplay, is it? So let's see what else we can find for games on this computer, and see what kind of performance gains we can get by switching from a 660 to a nice old ITX, same power connector, RX 570 4GB model. All right, we're over in Apex Legends, and those are the settings that it works out to automatically. So a mix of low and a little bit of high, ambient occlusion. So just so we can make sure we get the same one, we'll bump this up to borderless window, 1080p, and back out. So let's load up training with those settings and see just what kind of FPS we get at 1080p with a 660. Don't imagine it'll be too good. What's up, Bloodhound? Bloodhound's showing we're getting about 48 frames a second, and the details on this don't look so hot, that's for sure. So a good 44 frames a second in Apex Legends, which will probably drop significantly once we were actually playing in the game mode. But let's see, can we go ahead and grab some guns, or are we allowed to do anything? This looks almost like Half-Life with how the graphics are loaded right now. It looks pretty bad. All right, so we can see that, with a quad-core Core i5 running at 3.6 gigahertz, the CPU usage is only at 25%. It's the GPU usage that's pegged at 100. So we're definitely going to see a pretty substantial increase once we switch the graphics cards over. So let's just look at one more game so we have kind of a broad comparison for how this change is going to affect this system. Alright, so he's got Forza Horizon 4 installed, which is awesome, and frame rate target unlocked, and vertical synchronization off. And then if we go over to advanced here, yes, we're going to go to medium preset. Sounds about right. 660, loading that, and then we're going to save and continue, go to benchmark mode. We'll let the run through a little benchmark of this game and see how she fares out. I don't imagine it's going to be too great. Alright, benchmarks loaded up, and I wanted to say one thing of note. Quad core, some sort of Core i5 in the 2 or 3 Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge generation that's clocking in the 3.5 gigahertz, 3.4 gigahertz range. I don't actually notice that it's terribly slow to load the games, with an SSD for your Windows drive and a mechanical hard drive, for your normal drive. And we're seeing about 34 frames a second, medium at 1080p. This is actually a little bit more playable than I thought it would be at 1080p with this graphics card. So I imagine there's a lot of you out there with this level of CPU, maybe a little bit less, but the level of GPU for sure. And you're wondering, is it really worth it for me to spend $100 right now on a card that, it's not necessarily going to give me too much better performance, or is it? I actually would wager if you have, anything less than a 660, okay, anything less than 2 gigs of memory or 2 gigs of memory or less, and maybe 7850, 7870, something like that, some sort of, older first generation GCN, AMD GPU, but, or maybe a 1050. This is a significant upgrade. 1050 only? And even, this is faster than a 1050 Ti. This is actually just a bit faster than the 1650 that released. The lower end ones are going to be the cheaper ones that only have the 3-pin. And you know what? Even in a crappy Dell, you can buy an adapter that will let you go 2 Molex to 3-pin, and you might be able to get away with that. I'm not saying that's the best idea, but it should in fact run it. This is a pretty power efficient GPU, as we see from this. So we're checking out frame average, 36 averaged frames per second at medium 1080p. So let's go ahead and switch this GPU over and see what kind of performance increases we're going to get, because I'm excited. Oh, there we go. It's a beautiful 570 installed. And we're got drivers installed, as you saw. Everything's all taken care of. We're gonna go ahead and load up Snuana's Sacrifice here because, you know, she's a good girl, and we want to see what kind of a frame rate increase we got on that opening scene, which was getting about 20 frames a second initially. High, V-Sync's off, high, full screen windowed, and 60 frames a second. I wonder if this game has a 60 frame per second cap. We'll go highest, very high, apply. We're on very high, and we're still getting, it looks like this game's capped at 60 frames a second, so at least, you know, somehow. But we're maxing the game out. It looks a lot more fluid and lifelike at these higher frame rates and resolutions and graphics quality settings. Look how angrily creepy she looks. It's wonderful. Let's move on to Apex Legends. I think we're gonna see quite the increase there. Exit to main menu. All right, here in Apex Legends, I've just, I'm not beating around the bush here. I have gone and set everything to max. Because look at this, 100 frames a second, not looking too bad. 1% lows, I see some skips here and there, especially in online play with a quad core. It's gonna be a little bit, you know, worse for wear when it comes to that, you know, 1.1% low. But I mean, we're at 100 frames a second when before we had the details on low to medium maybe, and not the lowest, but almost. And we were not doing well for frame rate back there, 45 frames a second. You can max this game out now and, you know, have much better visuals, have a much better experience. And all it took was a simple GPU upgrade. That was it, just a tiny little one. So let's jump over to Forza Horizon and see what kind of a detrimental change in fidelity and frames per second we can check out in that game, Forza Horizon 4. Woo! Options and video, and go straight to advanced and don't show the message, and go to ultra settings. Whoa! Okay, we got the benchmark all loaded up, and remember we were at medium before. Now we're at ultra, running at more than double the frame rate. Well, double the frame rate. So I think this is a complete and utter success. This is just a worthwhile upgrade for any of you guys out there who need a little bit of extra performance, want to run the latest and greatest games. I mean, Apex is one of the, you know, more recent, hard to sort of run on some older graphics cards, online multiplayer games. I'm sure there are worse ones. Forza Horizon's, you know, not the hardest to run on, you know, newer, easy hardware, but I mean, when you're talking 660, not so much. And Snuana's Sacrifice, that was just loaded up there. But, you know, it's an Unreal Engine 4 game. You know, it looked pretty damn good. So now we're 77 frames a second average, going from 35 or something like that. We cannot complain whatsoever. More than double the frame rate. So I'm going to chalk this up. This is a complete success here. I'm going to go ahead and shut this puppy down. Boom. And I got to say, if any of you out there have older quad-core CPU, and maybe you have, you know, 750, 760, maybe even 770, 2GB model, or, you know, a 950, 960, or an older AMD GPU, you know, R9 270, R9 280, 7970, stuff like that. An RX 570, 4GB, cheapo model you can get for less than $100 on eBay, and new refurbished for around 100 right now. At least there's one on Newegg. But if you hunt for the deals, you can get these things for under $120 all day long. Absolutely an awesome upgrade for anyone out there. I am thoroughly impressed. You know what? I'm taking it out of here and I'm going to keep it. Because it's just that, no, I'm just going to do a thumbnail. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe, Instagram and Twitter. Can I get this screw out of here? There we go. Ouch! It bit me. I gotta say, if you're in the market for a graphics card, but you're a little worried about your bank account, an RX 570 will be the savior and keep you playing video games on your Core i5 from 6-7 years ago and getting really good frame rates, 60 frames a second in most modern titles at 1080p. You cannot complain about that. Is it the top of the line? No, it's not. Is it 1440p? Not particularly. But for a replacement on one of these old junkers, heck, you can't go wrong. I'm Timmy Joe, Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to GamDS for sponsoring this video, and I will see you guys in another episode. I'll put some Amazon affiliate links down there if you're looking for a 570 They probably won't be as good a price as I'm saying, but if you want to help the channel, you can buy one through there. Thanks very much. Talos E1, good PC case. Better than an old Cyber Power Antec case like this one. I'll see you guys later.